I'm Brad Carr. I interned with F&W Forestry Services this summer. So a little background on F&W. It's an international forest resource management and consulting firm. They have clientele both in the private sector as well as big land investment organizations such as TMOs and REITs that specialize in high dollar timber investment, investing millions and millions of dollars. And this company does all of their consulting, all of their inventory cruising and stuff like that. So they have 26 offices total, managing over 1.7 million acres. 19 of those offices are here in the States, mostly in the southeast. There's a couple up in the Pacific Northwest, upstate New York, Ohio. And then there's 7 in South America and Europe. They've got some property in Uruguay and some property in France. They also do a lot of co-ops with places like University of Georgia, with the PMRC and other universities and private sector educational involvement such as the Georgia Forestry Landowners Association. So I worked with the Forest Operations Auditing Department, and really the goals of my internship were just to get out there with as many different foresters as possible and see as many different types of forests as I could. And I mainly worked with the 2 auditors. The company has 2 auditors that maintain quality assurance essentially in their cruising, so they make sure the data that their forest technicians are reporting is accurate and correct. So we would basically follow behind the cruisers to make sure everything was correct. So I also did some data workup in software that the company had created that you do post-cruising. So that makes it really easy. We did some timber marking as well as some map making using ArcMap. So spatial does help you. And this stand right here made cruising really easy. This is a pretty mature stand in Albany. Quail plantation is burned every other year. Unfortunately, not everything looks that nice and clean. Before we talk about this is in Ohio, in the mountains. That's about 120-foot tulip poplar being hand felled with a chainsaw because the terrain was too steep to get a feller buncher in there. And this is the view of that. It's gorgeous. So some stuff that I did audit cruising most of the time. We did a lot of logging inspections to make sure that the logging contractors were being up to date with their contracts and reporting the proper tonnage and that sort of thing. We did some timber marking in second thins where the value of the timber is a little bit higher and it makes sense to go in there and mark what trees they're going to harvest. Did some SMZ marking as well as some sale boundaries, and then just basic cruising as well. So how did I help? Well, I would like to think that my assisting with the foresters when we would go out every day sped up the process, made it a little bit easier on them. A lot of them are pretty old, so I brought down the mean age, I think, of the company. I was kind of the runner. If we ever left anything in the truck, they'd send me. If we had to climb up a hill, they'd send me instead. So, and I really got the opportunity to travel to a lot of different places. I went to Tennessee, Mississippi, Ohio, Florida, Georgia, and Alabama. And so I was on the road every single week. I never didn't stay in a hotel. I was in a different hotel every week, which was pretty cool. It was also quite exhausting. By the end of the summer, I had a stack of hotel cards about an inch tall. So Warnell helped me a lot. I've learned a ton of stuff about just the basics of cruising and GIS. And this summer in May field camp, I learned a lot about logging operations and kind of how those work. So I had a great knowledge of kind of what the basics of everything was. Things that I wish I knew a little bit more was when the foresters were talking about grading timber, some of the vocabulary I wasn't completely comfortable with. Just they could just look at a tree and instantly say, okay, that's a grade 6 saw timber tree, and some of that stuff I wasn't as comfortable with because they knew exactly what they were looking for, and that just comes with taking more now classes. So also I hadn't learned any stuff about marking yet, so I had to pick that up. Also, foresters in here might know this, but they love to talk about counties. Like, they never say what city they're in. They only say what county they're in, and I don't know any counties, so I wish I would have known that. This is an example of one of those times when they sent the young guy. This is about a 100-foot rock face. This is in northern Alabama, and it was basically just a big hole in the ground. It was an old coal mine, and so there were just these holes in the ground, and this was about 100 foot. And of course, our plot was at the bottom in the middle of this. So the forester's somewhere up there on the ground, and he sent me down the rock face to go take the plot. This is a little example of southern pine beetle we saw too. This is a gorgeous wetland. But yeah, so thank you for your time. Love to answer any questions.